In the future, a failed climate change experiment kills all life on the planet except for a lucky few who boarded the Snowpiercer, a train that travels around the world. This is my review of Snowpiercer. So I wanted to see this movie when it came out in June or July, but the only reason I didn't see this movie in June or July was because it was in limited release. And the movie didn't come out in my area, so I couldn't see it. Which is a bit of a shame because I heard from YouTube critics and from some mainstream critics that the movie was actually good. But then when it came out on video on demand, I decided to watch the movie with my dad. And I have to tell you guys that after I saw Snowpiercer in August, I have to tell you that the movie was alright in my opinion. The good points. I believe the best thing coming out of this movie is the concept. Now some people may say that this concept has been done before because it's just a mix between The Day After Tomorrow and 2012. And the reason I say The Day After Tomorrow is because this movie happens after an ice age has occurred, and so does The Day After Tomorrow. And the reason I say 2012 is because all the human beings that are left alive are on this train. And in 2012, the governments and some corporations made these vessels so that they would survive the, earthquake and tsunamis. But I just thought there was enough original material that we haven't seen before in a post-apocalyptic movie that was making this movie an original concept. The second best thing about this movie would have to be the acting from Chris Evans, Tilda Swinton, and some other members of the cast. But I think out of the entire cast, Tilda Swinton did the best job in her supporting role as this higher up, upper class, aristocratic type of person. And she's basically a conduit between the upper class and the lower class, like telling the lower class why they should stay as the lower class. And throughout the movie, she acted so well that I hated her so much and I just wanted to see her die. And if you make me think about that in a movie about character, then you did something good with the acting and with that character. Then we have Chris Evans, who's the second best actor in this movie, and the reason I say that is because he's our main protagonist and he made us like us at the beginning, but some stuff happens throughout the movie where it's like, he sort of had a troubled past, but he became good. And towards the end of the movie, we get this scene between Chris Evans' character and this other character. And Chris Evans is basically talking about what happened when he first got on the train, and that scene was very emotional because you can see the emotion coming through Chris Evans' facial expressions and sort of his body expressions as well. Next, I think that the production and costume designs are good, but I think the production design is the better. So the costume design was just good in my opinion because you got to see all the clothing from the lower class all the way up to the upper class, and it had a little bit of futuristic ideas to it, but not much. But as for the production design, I thought the production design was great since the layout of the entire train was done well. You have the lower class train cars, which are these train cars that are packed up with the lower class people on the train, and they're really close together in close quarters, and they have to live together like that. And as our characters moved further and further up towards the head of the train, we gotta see that the train cars got more advanced as they went along. And I like how some train cars are for a specific thing that has to do with the entire ecosystem of the train. The editing was good in my opinion because I thought that this film moved smoothly through the beginning towards the end. And even with the scenes that I didn't really like that much, I still thought that the film moved smoothly. The directing was good overall with the non-action scenes and with some of the action scenes in the movie. For some of the action scenes, the directing was good because you didn't have some of that shaky cam that you see sometimes in all the action movies where it's oh yeah, I can't see anything. Because I think the director knew that at some points you didn't need the shaky cam and you could just tell and show this small skirmish or a small battle without using that shaky cam technique, because it adds more drama to that scene. And there are some moments where there are slow motion action scenes. And nowadays when slow motion action scenes are used, it's either really bad or it's really cheesy, especially in action movies. But when I saw the slow motion scenes in this movie, I thought it was really stylish and good. Because when the slow motion was used, you got to see everything that was going on around the main characters and everything. And I was trying to imagine what that scene would look like if it was just like in regular motion, and I think it would have been terrible if it was in regular motion because it would have gone by too fast and you couldn't like really get like what you saw all around the main characters. The only other good points I can come up with about this movie are with some of the visual effects that were in the movie, which I thought were good, not incredible or anything, but just good. And there was some other writing in the movie that I liked, which included with some of the dialogue in the movie and with some of the scene and character developments. The bad points. Definitely the worst part about this movie is the last 20 minutes or so because I was unsatisfied when the movie ended. And I'll explain myself in the spoiler section because I'll ruin the movie if I tell you like what was wrong about it. And another thing that I'll explain later in the spoiler section is with some of the writing, because there was some writing that I didn't really get why they added some things because of something that contradicted like earlier on or didn't make sense at all. And that made this one emotional scene seem a little bit pointless since something happened earlier in the movie. And the only other bad point I can talk about is with the directing of some of the action scenes. Because like I said before, some shaky cam is used in this movie, and when the shaky cam is used in this movie, you can't really tell what's going on. And I sort of get why the director decided to use shaky cam since it was like close quarters battle, but it's still like, even if it's close quarters battle, you still can't tell like really what's going on. Like you see people fighting with hatchets and swords and blades and everything, but you can't tell sometimes if someone's getting hurt or stabbed or what. Like I said, I watched this movie with my dad. My dad gives this movie a 3 out of 4 stars, while I give it a 2.75 out of 4 stars. Like I said, I thought it was an alright movie. There was just some stuff that I have to explain in a second that I didn't like that devalued the movie, but overall, still, I thought it was an alright movie. Alright, spoilers for Snowpiercer. If you haven't seen Snowpiercer, and if you're interested in seeing it, then get over now because I'm going to be spoiling it. I mean, I don't know why some people like to be spoiled when they haven't seen the movie yet. I don't see what logic there is in that, but I don't know. Just get out of here if you don't want to be spoiled. Alright, let me talk about some things that were leading up into the last 20 minutes of the movie that I thought were a disaster. So there's one thing that I was hoping that the writers or writer, I can't remember if there's one or more writers, but I was hoping that they or whoever it was would explain who this one like bad guy character was. Because I believe it was like after Tilda Swinton's character dies, there's this one bad guy character that sort of pops out of nowhere and is like the sort of smaller antagonist to the group of lower class people going up the train. And that sort of took me out of the movie because of like, wait, like, did we see this person before or what's going on? And another thing about his character is that he seemed really mad about the group of lower class people going up the train after he saw the dead body of Tilda Swinton's character. And then I was thinking to myself, okay, like, does he know her somehow? Is he her husband? And then I was trying to remember if I saw this character before in the first half of the movie, and I sort of remembered this one guy that they sort of put some emphasis on in this one scene, but other than that, I didn't remember who this person was. And if you wanted me to remember who this person was, maybe they should have put more emphasis on this person in the first half of the movie so that we would remember them, or at least I would. But then that character dies, and then the rest of the survivors of the lower class group that went up the train are in the second to last train car when Chris Evans' character and the mechanic like have this conversation. And this was the emotional scene I was talking about earlier in the good points when Chris Evans was telling the mechanic about how he got on the train the first time and how like they were running out of food in the back in the lower class train cars and how like they were like resorting to cannibalism and everything. And I thought this scene was really well written at first and everything, and I thought Chris Evans, like I said, did an incredible job acting in this scene. But then when he said that he was going to eat the baby that would eventually become Jamie Bell's character, I sort of had like a question mark on that part. And the only reason I had a question mark in that part was because why would they say something like that? I mean, because after that I felt sort of like a little bit less emotion. And the reason I had a little bit less emotion was because Jamie Bell's character already died, so what was the point of telling that it was like that character without having any like real suspense, as if like to ask questions like, oh, like does Jamie Bell's character know that already or does he not know? And I understand that they're explaining more about Chris Evans' character's background, but I just don't understand why they would mention Jamie Bell's character since he's already dead, and there's like no emotion here since he's already dead. But then we get into the last 20 minutes or so of this movie, and man, it was a bit of a disaster with the directing. Well, not really the directing, well, some of the directing, and with the writing. So Chris Evans' character gets escorted into the lead train car where he meets the leader of the upper class. And it's the guy that had the idea for the train and had his corporation make the train. So he's explaining why all this is happening and why past events like this have happened, and it's to like have the population go down. And he said that there's no time for survival of the fittest because the population keeps on growing. And then I was thinking to myself at the time, like, okay, I like where this is going so far. But then it goes into like this major cliche, which is that like the person behind everything wants to pass on like his legacy onto like another person, and it's like, oh come on, really? And I know that the character played by Ed Harris is dying and everything, but like couldn't he just give his job to someone else in the upper class? And then we find out that the kids that were kidnapped in the lower class train cars before are in the lead train car. They've actually been replaced as parts of the train because those parts have been destroyed and there's no replacements for those parts. So meanwhile, in the second to last train car, the mechanic and his daughter are planning on blowing the door up that leads to the outside so that they can get out, because the mechanic believes and has this theory that even if you go outside, you won't freeze to death, because before we saw this monument sort of where like the train passes this like one snowy hill, and it shows like past survivors that tried to like go out there before and they just turned into ice. But then this mechanic has this theory that the freezing temperatures aren't as they were before, since he saw that some snow was melting at this like crashed plane site. So they're starting to set up this bomb, and then all of a sudden the upper class people start pouring into the train car and sort of like, okay, like what's going on? Are they high on drugs? Are they drunk or what? And meanwhile, in the train car, where we thought that the bad guy from before was dead, like he sort of like jumps back to life, and it's like, really? Like, what's the point of this? Because later on, it's like this bad guy and the mechanic have this fight with each other, but then the mechanic defeats the guy in a matter of a minute or something. So then I thought to myself, okay, what was the point of bringing him back if he was going to die anyway in like a short matter of time? Meanwhile, in the lead train car, Chris Evans' character is trying to get the kid that's in the belly of the lead train car out, but for some reason the kid won't get out. And I don't understand why he wouldn't get out, because he has this like blank expression on his face, and whoever like was the actor, the kid actor for this role, did a terrible job in my opinion. Because I couldn't tell if he was afraid or if he wanted to stay there or not. So anyways, the bomb is set on the second to last train car's door, and the mechanic and his daughter get into the lead car, and the mechanic tries to close the door between the second to last and the first train car, but it won't close. So the mechanic goes to Chris Evans, the kid, and his daughter, and they all huddle up before the explosion. So then the explosion happens, and then it derails the train, and half of the train, like the lower half of the train, like goes down the side of this mountain, and the rest of the train goes through this tunnel and goes out the other end of the tunnel. But unfortunately, there's been like an avalanche that was caused by the explosion. And as the avalanche goes down on the upper half of the train, all the train cars scatter all over the place, and then there's this like high sky upper angle looking down on the devastation of the avalanche and of all the scattered train cars. And then it goes to black, and I'm like, you can't end it there. But then thankfully the movie came back. I'm like, okay, good, thank you. You're gonna end this somehow good. But it looks like the daughter of the mechanic and the kid that Chris Evans' character saved are the only survivors of the lead car, and they go out and they don't freeze to death or anything like that in a matter of minutes. And in the nick of time, they just see a polar bear that's like walking on top of this hill and then stops to look at them. And then I believe the last shot is the daughter of the mechanic and the kid like staring back at the polar bear, and then it cuts to black. And then I'm like, okay, come on, stop with this, like, just show us the real ending. And then it starts playing the credits, and I'm like, oh, come on, really? That's the ending? You want me to feel satisfied with that ending? Because, really, what happened at the ending is that there's really no hope for mankind. Because for all we know, the humans on the train are the last of mankind. And even though he didn't freeze in a matter of minutes, it doesn't mean he'll still freeze to death. Because I believe the train derailed in this like really big frozen tundra. So really, we don't know if there's any other human survivors. We don't know if there's like any equipment to help them survive like the night or with the coldness. And we don't know if there's like this city or town that's nearby that they can go to. So yeah, basically I just didn't like the ending. Alright, that's my review for Snowpiercer. Hope you guys liked it. And other than that, guys, that's it.